Hi, welcome everyone to the Sisters interview. I'm Sarithkin from Montier, and my co-host is my sister Ashaxi, Order of the Laurel, also from Montier. And tonight we have a very special guest, Duke Styrkarr Jarlskald, who is Order of the Laurel, a Duke and a Knight, and a whole bunch of other stuff.
And a Lion of Montier.
A Lion of Montier, sorry. Yeah, and he has a carp, and he's just a really fascinating person. So thank you so much for joining us.
Boy, it's my pleasure. I watch you guys so often, and I really love the way you treat your guests and the way you treat everybody with reverence, and it kind of creates the special moments that I really enjoyed during the pandemic, especially with being starved for anything SCA and anything of that kind of a personal nature. So I really appreciate the work you guys have done. It can't be easy, I'm sure. But I hope it's as rewarding for you as it is for us to watch.
It's been super rewarding for us.
Yeah, it totally has been. And we appreciate the work you've been doing during the pandemic.
So I'm loving this plague doctor behind you, but where's your armor stand guy?
So my armor stand is in the gallery, is in the room, but it's backlit terribly, and the sun's going down right behind it right now. So
we'll have pictures of him later.
My very wise wife forbade me to use it for any kind of background.
All right. Well, that was probably wise of her, but
not quite so portable as the helmet and the and the mask.
So cool
stuff. So you've watched these before, so you know that we usually start these with your SCA origin story. So if you could start us there, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So, I like most kids, I think, I just fascinated by knights and jousting and the Middle Ages in general, and reading Howard Pyle's, King Arthur and the Round Table, and everything I could get my hands on from that. And I remember very distinctly, it was about second grade, that my old mom took me to a medieval demonstration, and it was at this school that's not even a school anymore, and here in Wastekeep, which may have been the Shire of Wastekeep at that time, or pretty close to, I'd say. And there I got to try on this armor, and there was a fighting demonstration. It was the neatest thing I'd ever seen, and then I forgot about it forever until right about the time, just after high school, I think. And then I was at a comic shop, and I saw this flyer in this comic book shop for a medieval fighting demonstration. I said, oh, that'd be fantastic. That's a really good idea. And the guy says, oh yeah, I know the guy who put it up. He says he's a really great guy. You should really go. And so, of course, I was, 17 and busy and forgetful, as most 17-year-olds are. And so I promptly forgot, but I came in the next month and it was still up, and I said, oh, I was going to go to that. And he says, oh, that's no problem. I know the guy. He's here. I'll call him. And maybe you can just hook up with him and see some of the stuff. And so he cold called Dale Painter, Diane de Montel, and said, oh yeah, well, we got fighters practice on Wednesdays. Why don't you show up? We'll bring some loner armor for you. And I'm like, oh, the whole idea of loner armor was fantastic to me. So I showed up for a fight practice, and they put me in Aaron de Montel's old armor. And so, he's, I don't know, what is he, 6'6" or something like that, kind of like his brother. And I'm 6'1", which I don't think is short, but I certainly wasn't able to fill those full metal legs from top of my arches to almost to my ribs at that point, I think. But they put me in armor, and I said afterwards that I don't think I've ever had as much fun getting the crap beat out of me in my life, and I kind of never looked back. My first event was in Ithra, and they had Baron Gerhard Kendall come down and do a class on chivalry and etiquette, and I just I'm sure you guys remember or knew Gerhard, I hope so.
Yeah.
But what a fantastic representative for the society, and helped me fall in love. And I made a pair of gauntlets because Rolf was teaching a class, and I was just I showed up in an inside out t-shirt. Let's say I wrapped a sheet around myself and an inside out t-shirt with the rope around it. And Dagar will be sure and tell you that try and make it more medieval. I took like a white karate belt and wrapped it around like a baldric. And I showed up in this sheet inside out t-shirt, rope, and a white baldric. And Dagar's like, I can't tell. Is he like a master from another kingdom? That lasted about 20 minutes before somebody told me I should probably take that off. So but
Hopefully they said that nicely.
I did, I think. I don't remember having any bad feelings about it. And I remember the way people make me feel, and that's I don't have any bad feelings from that event or subsequent ones, I guess.
How long before you met Sven?
Oh, early on. So there's a good group here in Wastekeep back then, and still, but that particular group was very fighting active. You had Diane, and you had Dagar, and Rolf would come down from Vulkenfeld all the time, and a bunch of, and Dagar was really good about getting newer fighters in and getting them hooked and really getting them involved. And he and I latched on and were just best friends for a long time. And so he kind of got us involved, and he was squire to Gunnar. And so one of the things he would do frequently would be to go up to Weldsmere, and we'd go hang out with Gunnar, and therefore Sven and Gabrielle and Brenna, Marcy, Sven's sister. And we'd watch fighting videos, and we'd fight in the backyard until everybody was exhausted, except for Gunnar, probably. And so, of course, I fought Sven when I was maybe just turned 18. And then we were almost exactly the same age, and had both really just graduated high school or within just a little bit of each other. And so we latched onto each other and traveled all over the place.
About what year do you think it was when you found the SCA?
It was November of 1989.
89. Wow.
Yeah, it was 3 weeks before my 18th birthday when I found the SCA. I seem to recall.
Wow.
How long did it take you to get your armor together?
Oh, well, isn't that a never? Isn't that a forever?
Well,
How long did it take me to get an armor where I could go to fight practice?
Yeah.
Is the barony had good loaner armor and some sets of things, and mostly stuff that had been Diane's and had been Aaron's and some of the other fighters that maybe had come and gone just a little bit. And so there was a nice collection of things. And I remember my first experience with Beverly shears was cutting down those massive full plate legs that Aaron de Montel had worn and built for himself, so that they would fit me and not cut me in half at the navel when I wore them. So I was in armor pretty quickly, but I had this, the loaner helmet I had was a flat top, and it was riveted together, flat top, and it wasn't straight, it was kind of crooked. and so it was a lot of motivation to get my own helmet as soon as possible. And fortunately, Dagar and Rolf were fast friends, of course. And so when as soon as I had enough money saved up, I bought a helmet off of Rolf and fought in a bassinet for that was less than a year. It was definitely less than a year. I'll bet it was maybe 9 months before I had my own helmet and 90% of my own armor.
I think you'd be hard pressed to find anyone east of the mountains that didn't get in armor in part because of Rolf.
You're absolutely correct. Oh yeah, I mean, what a resource, he and Ashley both. But what a resource for the inlands that they have been for decades. And he just makes this super high quality, inexpensive, looks good. I mean, it's not Ugo armor, but you're not buying Ugo armor. You're buying stuff that looks really good. It's covered in leather. There's no exposed plastic, and it's something that a kid, working at a pizza delivery shop could afford and get out on the field with. But you're right. And it was when Cedric gave Rolf a lion, made him a lion. That was a really meaningful moment for I think really pretty much everybody in the inlands and everybody on the east side of the mountains here.
Very cool. So from there, you became a sergeant.
Yeah. I was the youngest, or the earliest, I think, maybe not the youngest. No, Sven was the youngest sergeant in Wastekeep ever, of course. He had already been a sergeant, and I think he got it when he was probably 16, maybe 17. But I did have the honor of being the person who had been fighting the least when they made sergeants, and it was a big deal. I mean, I was right about 9 months because I think it was August of 1990, and it was hot because it's waist keep and it's 100 degrees outside, and it's a pretty grueling trial. And it's a grueling trial for anybody, and especially for even an enthusiastic 18-year-old kid, I guess. But yeah, that meant a lot to me, and it was great because I love the sergeantry. I know there's a lot of thoughts on the sergeantry in terms of I've heard some disparaging things like, oh, it's a great place for people who'll never be knights, and I'm like, well, I can list a lot of examples where that's not the case. Duke, count, night. But for us, and of course, a lot of it's what does the local group make it, right? And it's that close tie with the Baroness. And we had Baroness Catriona Rothkrogen, Baron Diane and Baroness Catriona. And that was before they knew that they could step down. And so those poor wonderful people served as Baron and Baroness for 17 years.
So crazy.
I did 6, and I was like, yeah, I'm done at 5.5. But it was a wonderful experience because I learned heraldry. I was learning calligraphy. I had to write my own letter. I was learning the coats of arms of all the knights in the kingdom. At that time, there was enough that you could just memorize. There wasn't so many; you could just memorize all of them. And still, I go, and like when Sir Morgan of Aberystwyth, he had disappeared for a long time. He's up in the Vancouver area, right? And Lionsgate area, right? When he came back, he showed up, and I saw his heraldry, and this was, I don't know, 20 years after I made sergeant. So that's Morgan of Aberystwyth, and he's like, oh my God, who are you? You're too young to remember me. I'm like, oh no, I definitely know you. But what a great way to really ingratiate somebody into so many different aspects of the SCA. I mean, turned me from all I wanted to do was fight and didn't really care about anything else into wow, there's so many neat things about it. That's never gone away, of course. That's to do all the things.
So who encouraged you to do sergeantry?
Well, it was kind of an expected thing, but certainly Dagar encouraged me and helped me a lot. The existing sergeants, Sven, Megan McDonald, Rolf. There was a number, Balthazar the Quiet. I don't know if you remember Sir Balthazar, was also a waistkeep sergeant. It was really the only barony at that time east of the mountains, right? You had, I think we were, the 4th barony, maybe the 5th barony of Antir. And so it was pretty early on. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of the only game in town. And it was a great game.
Yeah. I think sergeantry is so important to help indoctrinate people into the SCA in a supportive, kind of safe way.
It is. And it's one of the only things that I can say that somebody can say, I'm going to go for this and I'm going to do this and then do it. I mean, you kind of can do that for peerages, but it's very different.
Yeah, there's no checklist.
Time to take a test, right? That's very more wibbly wobbly. I'm not really sure, fuzzy, how that works. But the sergeantry is clean and cut and dry, and very useful in that respect.
So you were pretty lucky to be on the east side, but to be in the barony proper, so that you weren't kind of out in the boonies trying to find people to fight and digging for information. I think a lot of the inlands suffered for that for a long time. I
think so. I felt very blessed. I had a great bunch of friends here, and I fit in immediately. And they say Dagar and I were, for better or for worse, I don't know if we went to a single event without each other for 2 or 3 years, or maybe more. Estrella, all over. And so what a super strong group. I was very lucky. I feel very blessed to have those types of people guiding me. Say what you will about Dagar. And he's a very polarizing person, but he's my father. He was my knight, and I love the man, and I always will, even if I don't always agree with him.
Yeah,
it gets healthy to not always agree with people. So
that's for sure.
He was your knight. So how did that happen? How did you guys get hooked up with each other?
Well, we, at that point we'd just been doing everything together, and he knew, Gunnar had talked to him about, he's being talked about, and he knew he was the hot squire for a while, and looking around him and seeing who was getting knighted first, and I remember when Davin was knighted, and he's like, all right. That was one of those, okay, after Davin, I think, how I imagine every squire has kind of this running list in their heads about some of the top squires in the kingdom. That may be unique to us, but but I doubt it. And
I think laurels do that too.
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
My laurelling completely blindsided me. So, but I didn't have a I wasn't an apprentice, so it was a very pleasant surprise. Don't get me wrong. It blindsided me.
So you squired to Styrkarr, and you were his squire for
Not very long.
not very long.
No, I'm still a squire, right? I'm just a squire emeritus, or whatever you want to call it now. But no, it wasn't very long, because I squired at Estrella. We went down one February or whatever it was, and he had just been knighted. I think he got knighted at Jarlskald, and so he'd been knight for 3 or 4 months at that point, really. And we knew that it was something we had talked about, and it was just expected, I think. And he's like, well, you want a ceremony? I'm like, I don't really think we need a ceremony. He's like, all right, well, I made a belt. So there, after we set up camp at Estrella at 10:30 at night, he handed me a belt, and then I was a squire. but no, it was less than 5 years from when I started to when I was knighted. And I think that was more possible and more common at that time. Now it seems like such a high bar. The level of fighting is so high. The average level of fighting is so high.
Yeah.
Which is a real wake-up story for me. Have you heard that story? Because you probably know that I had to take a break. Mundanely, I'm a physician, and so when I got into medical school, I clearly had to back off. Not a lot of time, and so I ended up taking about 8 years off for medical school and residency, and kind of get settled just a little bit. And it was something I loved and my wife loved, but we'd been away from it for a long time, except for an occasional fight practice and 1 or 2 demos over in the Middle Kingdom, and then in Callantyr. But we were kind of saying, well, we should, let's go back and let's experiment. Let's see what it's like. And there's an event up in Yakima, which is only about an hour from us, or Wolkenfeld, right? So let's go ahead and let's go check it out and see how things are. And if we like it, we'll jump back in. And if not, then no big deal. And so we go, and it was a crown, and it was the first crown that Tiernan won. And Tiernan was my squire brother. And so I show up out of nowhere. I don't think we told anybody I was coming. And I was like, I don't even know if anybody will still remember me. And lo and behold, my squire brother was in the finals and wins. Well, he's a knight, obviously, by that point, but still, and wins the finals. And that was pretty special for me. And Thorin recognized me too, Duke Thorin. He says, oh, Styrkarr, it's great to have you back. And, he's very low key, right? Like that's the most words in succession he's ever spoken to me in my entire life, right? But he had his squire, up and coming squire at that time, was Halen, right? Now Sir Halen. And I will never forget this, because I'd been out of armor except for a handful of times for 8 years. And Thorin's like, yeah, I really appreciate it if you'd fight my squire. And I said, oh yeah, because I just went and did pickup fights afterwards, of course, because what else would you do? And so he sends Halen after me, and Halen introduced, oh, I've heard a lot about you, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if it was true or not, but he was very polite, like Halen is. And we fought, and he just handed me my backside. As you can imagine, he's a hot squire, a top squire, and he just lights me up one side and down the other. And I was kind of really feeling bad about my own abilities and my fighting, and coming off the field, and he's like, oh my gosh, he starts building me up, because he's that kind of guy, right? And just building me up. He's like, oh, Styrkarr, he said, that was so much fun. I've heard so much about you. It's so great to finally get to fight you. You have these most beautiful, flowing, long wraps, and these beautiful flowing circle moves. And I was finally, oh wow, that's really nice. And you compliment me like that. And he's like, He's like, yeah, man, it was so cool. I haven't seen anything like that in 10 years. I'm like, body slam. So I will never forget that. But thank you, Halen.
Everything old is new again.
Exactly right. But everything had really become very linear. Like think about how Ulfgar fights, for example, just beautiful short linear distances between his shoulder and my face, apparently. But that was really the style that it had changed to. Very effective and took me a while to figure it out. I had to spend some time thinking, okay, well, this is a lot of fun, but is this something, I'm going to take the time to learn this new game, because it was a totally new game by that time, or is it something I'm going to kind of retire into obscurity? And clearly, what I ended up deciding.
Well, you ended up becoming Baron and Baroness of your local group, like really quickly after you came back.
Yeah, that was a bit of a shock. It was something that was, maybe in the back of my mind at some point. But that was Baron Arthur and Baroness Rowena, and they were coming up for their 3-year, and everybody assumed they were only the 3rd Baron and Baroness of Wastekeep. Before that, it was Ulrich and Megan, and they had gone for 6 years, and everybody just assumed that they were going to go for another 3 years. And then they said, no, we're not going to do a polling. We're going to put it up. And Stjarna and I were like, well, we were really thinking about setting ourselves up for 3 years from now, but what the heck, we'll throw our hat in the ring. And I was surprised because we hadn't been back for very long. I don't know how long it was. And I mean, we jumped in with both feet, but still, I think the populace really took a chance on us, and it was very flattering. And I hope we rewarded them for their confidence in us.
Well, you ended up doing 6 years, so that's pretty. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, we did, and that was the point. At that point was we had committed, and it was Cedric was on the throne. He's like, hey, look, we need a lot of stability. I know it's 3 to 6 years, but I really want you to commit to 6. And at the time, I was kind of, I don't know, whatever, sure, we can go ahead and do it. And I'm really glad I did, because I don't know if I felt like I even knew what was going on for the first 2.5. So to step down at 3 would have been a little rough, but we figured it out with a lot of really good support and a lot of really good friends. And this barony is just absolutely terminally nice. They're just so many wonderful people here that made it very easy to be Baron and Baroness.
That's really cool. I think that's just a great way to kind of re-enter, to really learn the ins and outs of everything.
It definitely forces you to do so. Sorry, I cut you off, Ripken.
No, I said it's very immersive.
Indeed.
So I feel like we skipped your knighting. Who offered you? Was it a surprise? Did you have a vigil?
So it was at a and this was me thinking back also. This is me being on that, keeping an eye on that list of who's some of the top squires at the time. And it was Ethelred, Cloudbreaker, Sir Colgrim. I don't know if you remember Sir Colgrim. Just a fantastic, wonderful man. I hope I get to see him again sometime, because he's just a great human being, and had a real affinity for hitting my head with his axe, and I appreciate that in a man. But who else? Corey, that was one of Einar's squires. But we kind of knew it was kind of getting close, and then it was at it was a July coronation. A July coronation, and they pulled me. They came out of Knights Council, and it was Rolf and Dagar, of course, and it was Balthazar the Quiet. And they came out of Knights Council, and they said, "Hey, I want to let you know that we talked about you at Knights Council today, and they're going to make an offer." And so I was, I don't know, 20. Maybe almost 22 or something like that years old. And so Balthazar the Quiet hands me a beer that he was drinking. And I'm like, I have never had a beer in my life, but this is, if any time's the time, this is the time. And so I took a swig off of it, and I'm like, and I almost spit it out. I'm like, oh, you guys drink this crap?
I haven't been missing much.
That's right. So it was the next day, or that later that day, that it was Rorik and Berengaria. So it was Rorik's second reign, and Duke Rorik, now Avical, right? But he offered, Dagar told me, I want you to take a vigil, which was pretty uncommon at that time. And so it was a one-night vigil, and Ludviga, because she's just a wonderful human being, they have a tent on the Eric, and so she donates the tent on the Eric, and people are coming to talk to me that I've never met or that I've just admired from afar, and there's dukes that I've just been in hero worship with for the last 4 years or what, and Dagar, because he's Dagar, hands me his helmet and a bottle of Brasso and a rag. Says, polish my helmet for tomorrow, Squire. And so I got to polish his helmet overnight while answering questions and getting good advice. And so when I did get knighted, so then I got knighted the next morning, and this was at I guess it was July coronation, and it was well, maybe it was September crown. Now I can't remember. Anyway, but what I do remember is that my that day, my or that month before, my membership had expired, so I couldn't fight in the tournament. And so I got knighted, and I thought, oh, what would be funny? Well, I got to tell you first is that I wanted to swear on Diane's sword, and so I was knighted by the Sword of State, and I swore my oath on Diane de Montel's sword, because he's very much my my SCA father, or father figure, I guess I should say. Dagar certainly, but much more of a close friend. But anyway, so he was the knight that I felt embodied the most ideals of chivalry. If I'm going to swear my oath on this sword, on his sword, because that's the kind of knight that I want to be. Yeah. And so then I thought, oh, it would be funny, because I'm also 22 years old, or however old I was. So it'd be funny is with the buffet, if nobody ever does anything funny for that. And so I before I went up, when they called my name, I put like 4 white Tic Tacs in my cheek, and I waited and waited and waited, and then there was that part, and I forget. I almost became a real thing, because I forgot Rorik is left-handed, and Rorik was good at showing you his right hand and then whacking you with the left hand, because that was a cool thing to do at the time. And so he whacks me, and I go back, and I stop for a second, and I shake my head, and I'm leaning over, and then I spit out these 4 Tic Tacs. And what nobody told me was that Styrkarr, if you're going to do something like that, you really should tell the queen first. Because poor Berengaria almost fainted. I'm not entirely sure she's forgiven me to this day for that particular scare. But at the time, I thought it was hilarious. That was my knighting. Oh, and then of course the next day. So now, or that day, I'm going to fight all the buys, right? So I'm brand new knight, and my membership expired, and I'm going to fight all the buys. And I fought the top knights in the list, and I fought both Torquil and Avalok, who were the finalists, and I beat them both just soundly. And I was like, oh man, why did I let my membership expire? that was $20 I didn't have. That's probably what that was.
Awesome.
That was the day I was knighted. Some people bomb on the day they're knighted, and some people shine. And I had a good fight day that day, that's for sure.
Very cool. We have a whole lot of pictures.
Okay.
So maybe we should start to take a look at that. I'll go ahead and pull up. And I have it queued up to your artwork. So maybe we'll talk about that first.
That's all right. This is something that's special to me, because it's pretty primitive, but something I made for my wife, and early on, and I did a reasonable amount of leather work, and I was always known for rawhide wrapping swords and decorating swords, and I still very much like doing that, and like the way that it looks on the field, etc. But this was a sax that I got from Grendel for my wife, and at the time, at least, Grendel wasn't making sheaths, and so I had this I had this beautiful, beautiful Damascus steel sax that Grendel made with this really pretty, like a fossilized bone handle, and just fantastic work. I love that man, and I love his work, and he's not cheap. And so I had this, but I had it for like a year and a half, and she couldn't do anything with it because it's very sharp and very pointy. And so I made this sheath out of I think I used cherry wood. It was a cherry, and painted it and carved it a little bit, and it was very primitive, but it turned out very well, and she still uses the knife and still has the sheath, and so it's kind of special in that way because it was a gift to my wife, and it was out of the ordinary. Is not something that I normally did. So that's an early Styrkarr artistic piece. Another early Styrkarr artistic piece. I learned to gold leaf for this one. But as Baron, this is where I one of the first roles that I took when I was after I made sergeants, is that they said, oh, well, you're one of the only people that did calligraphy and illumination for your sergeant's letter, your intention to go for sergeants. Do you want to be chief scribe? And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever that means. I found out that means a lot of work is what that means. And so, but that introduced me to it. And so this was an early piece, and this is the Order of the Silver Fox, which is very much like the Lion of Antir is to Antir, the Silver Fox is to Wastekeep. So essentially it's the person everybody wants to be, and I got to give it to Diane.
So you gave it to Diane. I was going to ask if Diane was the premier person.
He's not. Ulrich Montague, Ulrich Grimwolf was the premier, and I believe Diane was 3, because I think we gave it to Catriona. It's a 1 a year only kind of thing. We should go back because I think it has it on the shields. Right. Yeah. So this was actually a kind of a copy, or not a copy, but a modification of something I found in a really neat, the Wheel of Fortune thing. And so that's Diane on the left, and he was as rising on the Wheel of Fortune, and that's actually in fox or wolf or dog or something kind of like form. On the right is Aaron de Montel, and it was kind of symbolic because he was having a rough time in his life, so I put him on his way down in the Wheel of Fortune and his brother on the way up. And I still love this piece. It means a lot to me. It's relatively primitive as far as many scrolls go, but it means a lot to me, and I'm still proud for where I was when I made that and how it turned out.
Well, and I think it's important that you show early work.
Oh yeah,
I was going to say it doesn't look primitive to me.
Yeah, the calligraphy is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I think I'm a better calligrapher than I am illuminator, but I love both, so that's all right. So this was a piece that I was going to do for my daughter. She had asked for a little something. This is fine silver, and she wanted my oldest daughter, Byron. She wanted an angel, and I always called her my little angel, of course. And so she I think she was still in college here, and she studied musical theater, and her specialty is in stage combat. And she has all these national endorsements in stage combat and in teaching, and firearms for movies, and a whole bunch of really neat things. But and so I made this little angel kneeling. This is a bit unfinished, but it was very hard to do the fine detail like that. I was still pleased with the way it turned out, but and I ended up cutting it out and making a medallion for her. This is Reposade in fine silver.
So this is a lot of work in progress. This is not finished pieces that.
Sure.
Okay, so these are gorgeous though.
Thank you so much. These rondelles are damascened. So that is 24 karat gold damascened on black and silver. And these are for a set of pistols, actually rubber band gun pistols that were done up and actually are still in process. You just need to put in final assembly. But but they're like wheel lock, those beautiful pieces from the 16th century.
What got you into Damascene? It's such a kind of an obscure art.
It is. I wish it was not quite so obscure, but so in our area we have a ton of native Spanish speakers in the southeast and south central Washington. A lot of them farm workers and migrant workers, but a lot that aren't, so just live here. And so as a physician, I was getting a little bit tired of having to. It seemed like almost every shift I had to wait for an interpreter and wait so I could speak with some of these people and find out what was wrong and try and help them. And I said, well, you know what, really good idea is let's take a sabbatical. So I somehow convinced my poor wife that I should take 6 months off of work, and we should save some money. I should take 6 months off of work. Let's take the whole family to Spain and learn Spanish and do a cultural immersion kind of a thing. And my work was nice enough that they just covered for me. I still love them all for that. They just covered for me for 6 months, and then I popped back in full time like I never left. And so we went to Spain, and while we were in Spain, we were learning Spanish, and we had all 4 kids there, and it was a wonderful life experience for sure. But it was very difficult, and there was more than one time where I thought, what the hell have I done? What am I doing over here? But I was in the Royal Armory in Madrid, and if you ever get a chance to go, what a fantastic place. You get Filippo Negroli's work, some of the top stuff, mostly for Carlos V of Spain. Just fantastic examples. But I remember looking, and there were these pieces there were plenty of pieces that had been gilt. And I understood that thing. I had never done it at that time, but I understand, okay, this is mercury gilding, this is how you do it. But there were clearly a bunch that it was not gilding. You can't get that kind of detail with gilding or with mercury gilding. And so I remember I asked one of the guards, because I was fledgling Spanish, right? And I asked one of the security guards, and says, well, what is this? And he says, oh, it's Damascenado. And I said, well, I don't know what that is. He says, oh, they do it in Toledo. They still do it in Toledo. And I said, oh okay, because I knew Toledo was a town that's only about a half hour, maybe 25 minutes by train from Madrid, just to the south. And so the next weekend, I said, oh, I'll just go to Toledo and find out. So the next weekend, we all went on a family trip to Toledo, and it was like 112 degrees, and it's been like Spain is not a cold country, at least in that part for sure. But it was just all over. So I decided at that point, that was when I was commissioning, or when I was conceiving of the idea, because I was going to the Royal Armory a lot. And they don't have a season pass, by the way. You just got to pay every time. But that's when I was commissioning and starting to talk to Ugo about doing the agroli. And that was my original conception, was I'm going to go to Toledo. If they're still doing this, I'm going to find somebody in Toledo who can do this, and then give them my armor and have them do this to my armor. And after a while of that and exploring that, I said, you know what I really want to do is I just want to do this myself. And so I found a couple of people that were willing. It was hard because I was online and none of them speak English. And but I found a couple of people, and one said, okay, I showed him that I had done some stuff in the past. I'm not coming from nowhere. And he says, okay, fine. He says, fine, okay, I'll take you out, I'll teach you. And I'm like, oh, great. Well, I can come in whatever month it was, blah, blah, blah. And he says, and I said, I could probably I could probably come for 2 weeks. And he says, no, minimum 2 years. And I said, I can't, there's no way I can do that. But anyway, I worked on the poor guy, and so and he finally said, okay. I sent him pieces that I'd done and showed him pictures of some things. He says, fine, we'll give it a try. So I showed up, and for 2 weeks, like the very first day I got there, I was still jet lagged. And for 2 weeks, I got there and he takes me into the shop at like 9 o'clock in the morning, and we left at like 1:30 in the morning. And then he's like, okay, see you tomorrow at 9. And I'm like, oh, okay. and we did that for 2 weeks, every day but Sunday, of course, because it's a very Catholic country, and he needs a day off, And so we did that. We did every day for 2 weeks, and then I went back several more times for the same type of thing. But he calls me his little prodigy. But he's so amazing. He taught me so much. Oscar Martin Garrido, you can still find him on Facebook, and he was just recognized by the by the government in Toledo in Spain as a Damascene master. And there's less than 10 living masters in Spain.
Wow.
So,
What a gift.
oh, no kidding. What a chance of a lifetime. This was a new trial for me. This obviously an in-process picture, as you see, but it's the same idea, but this is wire and foil 24 karat gold damascened onto sterling silver. And so this, most of the work that they do is onto a harder metal, like steel. I mean, they use a relatively soft steel. They certainly don't harden it beforehand. But this was some early stuff I did. I bet I could do this. I bet I could do this on sterling. And so I ended up doing this for a Viscountess of Thierry. There you go. That's how it turned out. And it turned out, I loved it. It turned out subtle. Those are gold-filled arches. Those are reproductions from the cathedral in Reims in France. And then I was learning and teaching myself repoussé, and you see the silver one underneath is for the Viscount too. And Facebook's ruined me because all I can think of is
I know. I'm like, it's Seth, but that's not his name.
That's right. There we go. But they're just good people, and so this was fun because those are pink sapphires, trillium cut pink sapphires that I embedded in up there. Yep. And,
wow.
And the pearls set in the repoussé and chased gold. I was super happy with the way those came out. I did not charge them nearly enough money, but and Seth was so funny. He's like, I want something really manly and at early period. And I'm like, oh, that's all the instructions he gave me. And I'm like, okay,
Right.
you got manly and early period. And this is, that's this one. I made that for my wife. So she's my angel, but so she's definitely a fox, and she's got a fox on her coat of arms. And so I made this, and she's polite, and she wears this for me every once in a while. Definitely. So we talked about rawhide swords, and that was really my first artistic kind of things, because I hate duct tape, and I don't like seeing duct tape on the field, and I don't like it. I don't like letting my squires do duct tape. We'll do almost anything to keep them from using duct tape. And rawhide, I know there's some controversy about it, but one of the things I love about it is that it looks good. It doesn't leave duct tape marks. It's not obviously modern, and it turns out to be this beautiful canvas if you want to do some design work on it. And so this was a piece of knot work that I did for a sword. I think it was a prize, and if I'm remembering right, this one might have gone to Ulfgar.
It makes sense that, I mean, you do scrolls on parchment, right? Which must be sort of similar-ish. I don't know. I don't do scribble.
Yep, there's me in the workshop, Damascening something.
Look at all these sexy tools.
Oh my gosh, I know it. I probably have too many, if that's a thing.
Is there such a thing?
Oh, not as far as I can tell. So this is me working on Sethric's pieces, starting the raising. This was me at a workshop in California and learning how to do repoussé. I took one of my apprentices down with me, Baroness Sigrun from Weldsmere, and Sig rather, and she and I learned repoussé together. And this was something that I shouldn't have tried. But the teacher was so nice, and he said, hey, if you want to try it, go ahead. So this is a kind of a 3/4 view, and was turning into like a 3/4 view, kind of a classic Greek shot. And I still have that piece. I ended up ruining it later on accidentally, but I still have it because I was very happy with it. This was the a laurel medallion that I made for Marika when she was laureled. And that is also, so these are blue sapphire cabicons, and then that is Damascened 24 karat gold, the wreath, and the leaves are green gold. And I made that green gold and then made the foil out of it. That green gold is almost like 85% gold, and then like 7.5% silver and 7.5% copper. So I can't remember the exact formula. I'm sure I could look it up, but it turns these. So I really loved using that to make the green leaves.
Yeah, it's really, the color variation is really cool.
Yeah, there's a number of things you can do that they do modernly. What was that? Sorry.
No, you totally anticipated my question. Anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot of variations, and so they'll use copper sometimes, or they'll use platinum sometimes. They actually modernly they'll use aluminum, which is a great advantage over silver because it doesn't tarnish like silver. Silver tarnishes so fast, of course, but it's still silver, and so I love it and I still use it. And this was a mod medallion. This is close to done. I was still filing everything, but this was for Master Sebastian, and that is similar. There's a Damascene 24 karat gold fleurs, and that's repoussed and chased, the 3 crossed rapiers, and there's some ermine spots chased into the black in the back, and this really neat square pyramidal shape that I saw on this German piece from the period. And I know he's French, and so I put a bunch of fleurs in it, but it was so cool to do this 3-dimensional. I had to make a tool for that because they're not straight squares because they're going around a circle. And
right.
So they toe in just a little bit. So I had to make a tool that gave me these just a little bit of toe in things to repousse those.
Wow.
It turned out well. At least
you have kind of a special connection to the Master of Defense in this kingdom.
I like to think so, in a number of ways. First off, is one of the early knights that adopted fencing, and again, there's the influence of Diane de Montel because he was the second, I think, White Scarf of Antir, but there's just such a bunch of great people. When I was king the first time, they really kind of took me under their wing, and they were super nice to me. And before that, and even after that, and they were just this beautiful, welcoming community that I really reminded me a lot of the heavy fighting community when I first joined. And so I had this special place. A, I love fencing, and B, I just really love those people. And so we were talking, that was early on, we were talking about doing the new peerage. And so we had done a bunch of work on that and research on that. And it's one of the things I like to tease Saverick about, because I did all this. This is how I tell the story naturally, is that I did all this work on helping to get set up for this new fourth peerage and to make Avacal a kingdom. And who's the father of Avacal? That'd be Saverick. And who was the guy who made the first mod? That'd be Saverick. So, but Saverick, he's just such a wonderful human being. But he let me be a part of that, and he invited me to write and to herald the very first mod ceremonies. And so that was done as a triple ceremony, and I got to write that, and he let me herald that too. And then I got to write the substantial part of the mod swearing in sections that's since been adopted and or adapted as it is for coronations, and the idea of that special relationship that the kings have with the king has with the knights, and that's reflected a lot in the special relationship that the White Scarves had with the queen. And so let's reinforce that and give the mods the same thing. We're not going to do the same thing, I love the color of steel. It's a great symbol. It's a great picture. It has such deep meaning, but let's reverse that and let's show that the knights are willing to take the lives of the king, but that the mods are willing to take their own lives in service of the queen. And so they reverse the swords. And a number of people contributed to that as well. But I felt very blessed to be invited by Saverick to write those and to contribute to those and give back to that community in that small way.
That's awesome.
So that's just me and putting this piece up. So I'm not above dad jokes, and that caught up with me a few years back at an event when I got woed. And so And for a long time, I resisted that you're supposed to wear something to mark you as a woe, so that otherwise innocent people who seek to involve you in civil conversation are forewarned or something like that. And so I said, well, fine. Well, if they're going to make me mark myself, I'm going to do it in gold. So I did damascene one for my early period kit outfit, and one for my Spanish. And this is that's my finger, but that is the engagement ring that I made for my daughter when she got engaged. She got engaged and she's married now. She got married, had a pandemic wedding last year, married to one of my squires. So I'm not sure how that worked out, but he's just a wonderful human being, and he needed an engagement ring, and I said, oh, I want to make that. And he was nice enough to say yes. So this is it's sterling silver in the band, and you got 2 diamonds. It's offset and 2 diamonds, and I think that's a yellow tourmaline, if I remember correct. But it's the sister gem to this that I made for my wife too. So
I was gonna ask.
I was very proud of that. Oh, and then Skaggy and I, we did the coronets for the circlets for Owertha as a joint project, and you see the Owerthan coat of arms, right? Exactly, the arms there with the 8-pointed star and the 2 howling wolves. That's damascened in silver, and there's gold and there's sapphires and all over that piece, and we love the piece, I mean, I look back at it now and say, I could do a lot better than that, but I think that's the curse of every artist.
Yeah.
But I'm still very proud, and my good friend Soren's wearing that up there right now, and every time I see pictures of him, I'm like, oh, I still love that piece.
They're super gorgeous.
Thanks. This is the riveted mail that I did for Camille that I did for my Torgal helm. My Vendel helm, and really changed the way that helm wore and sat. And I love that helmet. Still, it's my oldest helmet that I own, and still my favorite to wear. Kind of like Sven always wears that half ratty, half rusted out Rolf piece.
I know a secret about that. It's actually a new one that is made exactly the same way.
Oh, was it?
Yep.
I know he sent it to Rolf for some blinging and for some redoing, but I did not realize it wasn't the exact same one. But that's funny. This was a rapier hilt I made for my daughter. This is very early when I was trying damascening. So that is silver and just a touch of 24 karat gold on the steel pommel of a rapier hilt. But very, very early on, and you see a lot rougher than some of the pieces that you showed later, but very proud of it because it was a lot of work.
While we're talking about your art, Vesta asks, what skill or niche haven't you tried yet that's a someday for you?
Oh, that's a great question. Like I say, I suffer from that I want to do all the things disease. And so I've been trying to focus on things on taking some of what I had and really refining it. And I've dabbled in a bunch of things before I discovered damascening. And then I couldn't help myself. I just dove straight into that. And that's one that really took off. And then I got recognized as a Laurel for that too. So that was very sweet. It was a surprise, and it was very rewarding. But I don't know, I would say all of them. I wish I could pick one because they're all so good. I'd love to get better on I put a lot of work, and you can see the improvement in my lettering here, for example. That's my illumination too, and it's not bad, but I think my lettering is better than my illumination as well. And this is another silver fox, and then I love this one because Bane, Matthias Bane. Yeah, I love that man. I didn't know him that well when I picked him to be my head of retinue for my very first reign, and it was a real gamble, and he just paid off in spades. And he has the beautiful, the medieval house, the wooden house he's built, and he does so well at enriching the kingdom, and every space he's in, not just personally, but on the field and his encampment, is such a wonderful place to be immersed in something that's so medieval. And he makes that wonderful for everybody. And there was an award already created. It wasn't our award. It was part of the kingdom already, the righteous wrath. And it blew me away that he was not already in that. So I said, well, what do you give to a guy for the righteous wrath? Well, you give him something that goes into their camp. So I had Sir Guy make me this bench, and I turned the bench into a scroll and finished it and gave it to him as his scroll. So it was one of those ones that was very personal. And so a lot of the very personal things I did as king, I wanted to make sure I had a hand in. So I made the scrolls or whatever. And this is right up there as well. This would be Phelan's knighting scroll. And this, let's see, I did, because not long before, you see down on the bottom, you see me on horseback and Phelan in the middle, and Sir Philip de Montel, who was my squire, was my first squire who was knighted, on horseback, and the remaining squires there on foot. But this is my lettering and my design, and the diapering, and the most of this illumination was done by Morgan of Aberystwyth, because I love his geometric diapering, and I didn't have time to do the entire scroll, so I asked him to do that part of the illumination, but the majority of the illumination rather, sorry, and he just knocked it out of the park.
I love the fish.
Oh, I know, isn't that great? Right from an extant example too, and especially for Phelan, who's a consummate fisherman, of course. So perfect for him. And there, just like we were talking about, that's Bain's house on the left, and I had asked him, what are my odds of getting a house? Because I wanted to represent Antir when I was king, and I think the king should have something special. And he says, I can either build a house for you, or I can be your head of retinue. And I'm like, well, I want you to be my head of retinue. Why don't you? And so he gave me the plans, and so I built the one on the right. But all I had was like 5,000 board feet of cherry that I got in a crazy good deal off of this guy from North Shield, and so I built my house out of cherry. And Master Torvald, the blacksmith, he did those hinges for me. And this was, I think this was up in Langley or someplace close, where I think this is one of my step downs. Probably, I think this is my second step down. But.
And there's the bench.
And the bench, that's right. But see, isn't that just a beautiful piece? I just love. Oh, and another shot of him too. And this I don't know where this was. Maybe on your west. But we love to camp together for obvious reasons, and not just because we're such good friends, but they show off. This is me teaching at Sport of Kings. They had asked me to do a class about the Lion's Torso, or about doing period armor, helping working on your kit to make a period kit. And so this was me doing that. I got as a gift it's a hunting sword, and it's a Spanish hunting sword, and it's this beautiful heavy blade. And those were designed for the coup de grace, where when you're hunting deer or boar or whatever, you get close and use this heavy, really sharp sword, and you sever the spine with it. But I got this period one, and that had some new handle put on it, and it's this big old honking antler handle, and so I said, this doesn't have enough bling, so this was me cutting out and damascening and repoussing a piece of silver to match the handle. Pommel, I guess I should say. This was a raven of Thierry. So right, this is the raven is the lion equivalent for Thierry, in the same way the silver fox is for the barony of Wastekeep. And these were me starting to redo the Wastekeep headbands, or sorry, the circlets. Also damascening. That's how they came out. The original circlets were done by Shoreleaf and
William Bjornson.
William Bjornson, of course, which is fantastic. I just love their work. So clean, and his work is so clean. But they wanted a different front piece for it, and that was very difficult to take somebody else's work and build a piece to match. I don't know if you have how it matched in, but maintain their beautiful aesthetic, but do something different in the way that the Baron and Baroness wanted.
Yeah,
This is Eric's, is this his ducal ceremony?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that guy, he's, so he's Dagar's son, right? And so here's me in the background, squinting in the, sort of like King Arnsbjorn there, apparently. But this is, so this would be his, it must be, because I must have been just recently laureled at that point.
Yeah.
But Eric was born when I was squired to Dagar. And so true story there, I was his very first babysitter. I was the first person that Dagar and Talitha allowed to be at home alone while they went out for the very first time after he was born. So he didn't cry very much, as I recall. Looked a little bit like a Tweety bird, though, but he's gonna wrap my butt cheek for that one. I know. This would be my. I love these pictures. They're a series of pictures. Just these families get together. This was as I was about to walk up for my laureling. So it was my wife, and I've got all 4 kids in this picture, and I got Phelan and Aaron. I got my squires. Lachlan's there, Tova, and I just loved it. I was champion, obviously. So there's a whole series of pictures that was great. This is just beautiful. This is my laurel scroll, and it was done by Jose Cabrera de Castile in a 16th century Spanish style, and I love it. Phelan speaking, I think, at the laurel ceremony. She's so wonderful. I love her so much, Laurel. She's my dream laurel. She's the one. Like Diane is the knight that I want to be, and Laurelin is the laurel that I want to be. And so when I made her, so our second reign, we made her a lion for that reason and many others. That was the easy one. This is the laurel circlet that Ugo did for me. I made a little strawberry leaf edition in gold, Damascene to it, but
Awesome.
But that's my only nod to my dukedom, I guess.
That's like yourself, people.
That's subtle enough. That's all right. So not every laurel swears fealty on the sword of state, but it seemed appropriate for me.
Yeah, I think I swore on the Queen's crown.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
Every nod the Queen gets is worth it.
And Kiva.
Oh, she's my other laurel.
She's amazing.
Other dream laurel, just a wonderful person. And Laurelin speaking for me. She's so sweet.
And then I just love her too.
Oh, how do you not, Elizabeth? And her wife, and just I don't know. The laurel community in Ontario is so welcoming and so sweet and so just rich with talent. Speaking of rich with talent,
Who's that guy?
Obligatory spin shot there.
Oh,
Looks like we're probably in line for right before the challenge round of attorney. And here I'm fencing, and he's obviously not. So there we go. How flattering it is to be to have been made a duke and be up there with people like that they have just so much respect for, including you, Rifkin, in that picture. So this is some, I think it was a Toys for Tots tourney in Weldsmere, probably back in like 91, something like that. And so just for fun, Sven and I, so this is probably right about the time where Sven and I spent like a year traveling around together because I had a car that worked. And so we'd go in on gas and, sleep in the car or sleep in a little pup tent or something. And we went around and we had this terrible contest. We're like, which one of us can get the most baronial championships in this year?
Oh no.
And I think he won like 5-2 or something like that, which shouldn't surprise anybody. But we were the worst baronial champions ever too, because we just showed up for the tournament and probably never showed up again. But this was an event where somebody thought it would be a funny idea, because I fought with a round and Sven fought with a heater, if they made us swap shields for this fight. And I recall it was pretty ugly. I don't know what I'm doing with the heater there. This is, as you say, this is the me in the middle and my wife's Jarna. Me and tennis shoes and jeans under my Alaric knees. And this is at the Beat My Son tournament when Rolf, Longbow's son, turned old enough to fight. And so we all went up into the mountains and took turns butt wrapping him. a shot from being Baron and Baroness. They're so meaningful. These people. This is at a Baron's ball, and this young lady was becoming our Bardic champion, as I recall. She just showed up out of nowhere. I think it was her first event, and she entered the Bardic competition, and she sang so beautifully. And we're like, we want to make you a Bardic champion, but it doesn't mean you have to come back next year. And she did, and she was just delightful. She must have been 15 at this, but it's just such a delightful young lady. It looks like we have the Queen in attendance too. That's probably Miranda.
Miranda, yeah.
Which means that this is probably the event that Eithon was knighted. No, not this one. This was Duke Cedric when he was being knighted, obviously before he's Duke, but Dagar and I putting on his spurs. But you see Gunnar there, looks like Bran, Skepti, Dak, of course. Yeah. Heroes. All heroes. Torquil in the background. And I'm a little baby, is what it looks like, I think. Same haircut.
Speaking of babies.
Speaking of babies, ouch. There is the squiring of Phelan Tolis Neither. This is before I told him his armor looked terrible. I don't think I used those words, and I gave him a suit of riveted mail, so he could wear that instead, and the helmet to wear. Then that was the start of the other than my wife, the best friendship of my life, I think. So yep, there's me giving him the helmet to wear, and that was Eithon's idea, by the way, was that I should squire Phelan. That he was kind of thinking about taking a step back from the SCA, it sounded like. Eithon got drunk one night and told me that I was a fool for why couldn't I see that I should be squiring Phelan? That was a good move. I owe Eithon that. Sir Rolf, and there's Megan McDonald in the background, and classic early duct taped pieces of leather to the legs. And me on the left there, but with the same helmet.
And I was thinking that's Dagar, but it's not. It's
Dagar's probably right behind me, it looks like, but I might be wrong, but it looks like Dagar's right behind me. And that is Rurik, the Baron of Wildsmere. Or sorry, back Vulcanfeld. Now, not then though. Me and Vic. I don't know when this was. I'll bet this is when Vic won. Wouldn't surprise me. Good picture. Tiernan's there. I'm a sucker for babies. Tell me about that baby.
So this is Corey and
Otar, Sir Otar.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. And he's wearing an Ashaxi original that's 18 years old now, because I made it for my son.
Oh.
And you're wearing the Agroli.
Yeah.
And this is your work here.
Yep, that's Damascene. Not real well visualizing that picture, but yeah, that's it's blackened, and the gold acanthus leaf scroll work on the gorget. Someday, when there's no longer a pandemic, I would like to continue work on that and turn the whole thing into a Damascene piece, like the ones in the Royal Armory. And then I may never wear it on the field again, because it'll be worth more than my house.
Yeah. So tell me, do you have like a tradition of giving your squires helmets when they get knighted? Is that a tradition?
Not necessarily, but I give them gifts. I think it's beholden the level of quality of the armor that's out there right now, and the kits out is beautiful to see. But one of the problems with that is that bar is really, 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 really high, and it takes a long time to get together a kit like yours or like mine, or like so many really nice kits out there. And so I feel as a knight, that's one of my responsibilities, and it's a medieval responsibility. I'm arming my squires, and so I give them armor or pieces. Not everything, but pieces that get them on their way to having a good looking kit. I jokingly tell them that that you don't have to win, but if you're going to die, die pretty.
Cool. That's cool.
And that was me fighting Rifkin, of course, or at least on the, on the ground. And we think we were posing for something here. I can't remember. Clearly at an Ursulmus. And just me and my brother from another mother, Phelan, there. Speaking of, I know it's a bit of a controversy sometimes, but I ended up knighting my squires, and it wasn't a controversy at Knights Council, I can tell you that. But I got to knight Phelan, and this is, I believe that looks like Sir Osric talking, but
And Dagar looks like he's doing spurs.
yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. Philip in the background, my beautiful wife, of course, but a special moment to witness the there it is. To witness the knighting of your squire, but to actually be the one to be able to do that was a blessing for sure. And I don't mind hitting him, he was fine.
So Alina wants to know what your favorite event or moment in the SCA is so far. Would that be hard to answer?
My favorite event, like an individual event or event in general. So my favorite event in general is Barons Ball. And it's just almost nonstop fighting for a day. It's set up as this 14th century team tournament. So it's a lot of warlike scenarios, but you're keeping score and individual scores. And it's just so much fun. So much fun fighting. It's the last camping event of the season. It's a great event. And what's my single most meaningful event for me? I don't, an individual one, that'd be hard to say, because my SCA history and my SCA career is so full of so many meaningful events. First time I went to Estrella, first time I went to Fenzik, first time I fought in Crown, first time I killed Torgal on the field, you know, getting to fight Master Corwin and Master Grendel at the same time as a kid. I mean, I got so many happy memories. So giving an award as king, being a king was so rewarding, so meaningful to us. And we did it up the first time because I'd been fighting the crown for 20 years or something like that, and I'd never won, and I had no reason to think I was going to win that day. And so I ended up winning, and like, oh, this may never happen again, so let's just do it upright. And spending time, a lot of energy trying to benefit the kingdom and going down to the summits. And one of my favorite memories is giving Seamus of Cali an award while he wasn't wearing any pants.
We'll have a picture of that later.
Excellent.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So is there a story behind the hobby horse, or should we move along?
There was, it was some sort of contest in an autumn war, and you're supposed to try and steal people's horses and all sorts of things, and they ended up, and so I think I ended up giving that away as a prize to some young lady who had stolen it from me. This, of course, is one of the best pictures of all time, as far as I can tell. This was just after. They're like, we need a picture for, this is like the event that I won. Like, we need a picture for the website. I'm like, all right, here we go. And Lachlan jumps in, and so I made a face. And this was would have been my second Collar Estilo, because I'm in Spanish here.
I remember pattern matching that doublet.
Oh, dear Lord. God bless you. Dame Megan was finishing that. I recall that, finishing that outfit that night before. What a heck of a way to spend, Friday night at 12th night. I'm sure that's not the first time that's ever happened.
No, that's pretty standard, actually.
I imagine. A sacrifice that was noticed and appreciated. And here's the mod ceremony. Part that I helped to write, and my children sitting there, and me standing looking like don't belong in the background.
Taking backseat and letting her shine, which is really.
She shines by herself, doesn't she? She's amazing. This is that's Tater, so this would be Gulf Wars. That horse name is Tater.
I love that it's the horse. Like, yeah, it's Gator, it's golf horse.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just like whipping through these. I'm sorry. So this is thrown weapons.
Thrown weapons. This is Gerald Huntington showing me how to throw a knife, as I recall. That guy can throw. He's amazing. But
Yes.
this was at an event in Blyth Lenore, one of their arts and sciences events that we went to. Our second reign, we really focused on arts and sciences and went to every arts and sciences event we could. Ended up making a number of awards like the Sable Bonnet and the Scholar of Ontier to kind of encourage more of that kind of scholarship. And this is part of the Pembroke photo shoot. Sir Stephen of Pembroke, photographer, of course. And this was what I said, we've won once, it's probably never happened again, let's do it up. So we hired Pembroke to do a photo shoot, and this was at the quad at the University of Washington, and we got some great pictures of this. This looks like a romance novel cover. and she looks good. And of course, there's my wife doing a tea party, or her doing a book, reading books to the kids at this is probably a May Crown. It looks like I was enjoying the story as well. So
and Torquil's.
And of course, right. He's going to edge closer as the book got more interesting.
I don't know what's happening here.
I don't know either.
Like fairies from Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah, they do have that look to them. That's right. That's funny.
A bunch of gnomes.
Something going on with those hats at that May Crown, as I recall. That's the one where Phelan was knighted. And there we are. There's the picture of Seamus with no pants on. I think he was getting the Mano de Oro at this one, which, if I'm not mistaken, our previous reign to this one we gave to you, Ashaxi.
I don't have a Mano de Oro, but I have the
St. Nicholas thing.
Hand of St. Nicholas. That's the one. That's exactly right.
Yeah, which I treasure.
Another one of those where you look around and you're like, I can't believe this person doesn't have that.
Seriously.
Summits is so good. There's so many wonderful people there.
They did, and as king, you kind of made a commitment to them to really engage in their principality, and even after you stepped down, you've continued that engagement and continued to promote their people, and I think that that's really awesome.
They're so wonderful, and they were struggling so hard when we stepped on. When you become king, you inherit the wonderful things and the problems from the previous king, and they were running into some problems, and they're having some issues and problems with engagement. And so we made a huge effort to go down there and spend some time with them, figure out what's going on, and help them in any way we could. And that's not a 6-month project, right? This is a big group. It's a big area, and so many fantastic people in that group. So many, like Sir Geoffrey here. And so I just fell in love with them, and I go down to the summits every chance I get. We went to their arts and sciences the last time, last year when it was held, right before we stopped seeing things or stopped doing things again. And I'll still go down. It's a 10-hour drive to get down there, but those people are worth it.
Totally worth it. There's so many great artists down there.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So this is Bane getting his pelican.
Yeah, he has not forgiven me for this.
And the hat is super awesome because it's got a tail and a head on it.
That's a fantastic hat. It was fun. He was in the back of court behaving badly and didn't hear his name being called. And I had him dragged forward, and Alfred was there, and down in the lower right on this picture. That was a good moment at Ontier Westmore. Also Ontier Westmore. That's Jacques. That's Raphael Rogue's horse. My wife and I on horseback. Speaking of, is like the equestrian community is so welcoming, just in the same way that the rapier people were. And it wasn't just when I was king, it was just that genuinely welcoming.
Yeah.
And bend over, but there's so much work to bring a horse to an event and keep a horse at an event and take care of a horse at an event. And they're just so generous with their time. And I took advantage. I still do.
Yeah.
I still love to ride, and I fell in love with riding because of the SCA equestrians. But also to be able to address your troops on horseback, that's pretty neat.
Pretty cool.
A great moment. This is in one of Havok and Mary Grace's 12th night, as I recall, where we got to do the Spanish Inquisition. We all showed up, and of course, Baron Aaron and Baroness there, Aaron as the Infanta, and Gerald as the bishop. Oh, this was a great piece, a great piece of fun that I'll remember forever. So if you pick individual moments, Alita, and not necessarily individual events, this has to rank right up there. It was some fun bit of shtick. There they are. And all the Spanish glory. What a talent. What a talent he is.
He
I
really
just
is.
love everything he does and everything he
And
does.
he has a really beautiful brain too.
He does. He does. Strong opinionated brain, and I can relate. And that's okay. Then me fighting as king, fighting His Majesty Miles, then King of the West at the time. Not showing my finest fighting form here, I think, but
Sorry about that.
it's still a fun picture.
We'll make it go away.
And then Gulf Wars again. That was such a big, beautiful horse. And Arminius, I love that man. That guy, man, what a great teacher, what a great fighter, what a great student of the art, what a great patron of the arts. Such a unique person. An honor to know him, an honor to have fought him. Maybe not so such an honor to win with that final shot, but I normally don't aim for the groin, but things happen. This is our boys. I think they were. This must have been our stepping down. I think we gave them some sort of little token. Baron and Thorin. Baron's 18 now, and Thorin, he's going to be 16 here in a month. And I know. And yours is 18 apparently, huh?
In October he will be 18.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Time doesn't go slower as I get older, that's for sure.
No.
I love those boys though. Oh, great mod ceremony for Pierce, Master Pierce, down in the summits. A beautiful picture of my wife too.
Yeah.
But another example of just a paragon of virtue and chivalry that the summits has to offer, Master Pierce. I just love that man. Love that man and his whole household too. And we have an angry new king. That's murder face. So this is me handing over the last. That would be the medallion, probably the last piece of regalia during Christian's coronation. This would be his second, the end of my second. And Ugo, of course, showing off the top of the helmet back there. There we go. On that side.
Oh.
Love the piece. That whole piece is full of symbolism that's meaningful to me, and working with Ugo on that project and being able to be a patron for an artist like that, for a dream project like that for us both, was very rewarding. The level of one of the things I wanted to mention was the level of workmanship and the quality of the things that are available in the SCA these days is so remarkable, just so high. But the thing about that is, if you want to make a living at it, there's very few people who can effectively patronize. And I really feel like that's very similar in the Middle Ages. And thankfully, I don't have to make the income of a real duke, a real Spanish duke to be able to afford this, or the income of Charles V, who commissioned similar outfits from Filippo Negroli. But that's one of the problems is, what does Ugo, such a great wealth of talent, and what does he sell mostly now is these little trinkets, beautiful little trinkets, but he can't do this anymore because how many people can afford that? How many people can commission? I had to buy essentially 15 months of Ugo's full time for this project. And I was blessed that I was able to do that. But that's unfortunately a difficult thing. And And so that's what I worry about, is that one of the things that I feel strongly about in the SCA is that the people who should be patrons of the art in the same way that the nobility were patrons of the arts in the Middle Ages and in the Renaissance. That's where that money has to come from, and that ability to give those artists the ability to make those kind of things has to come from patrons, because you can't take a year of your life or a year and a half of your life and not do anything else. You have to be rewarded for that time.
Yeah.
So that's my hobby horse, and I feel called to that. And I have a lot of things from really remarkable artists, Ugo, of course, Duke Torgel, and there's a number of other, Gwen the Potter and Mitras Morgana and Phelan, and they're just some really amazing things. And I feel like that's something I am blessed to be able to do, and so I should be doing that, because those things need to be made. Those things need to be realized.
And even if you can't patron an artist at that level, so many artists now have their own Patreon accounts, and you can sign up for like $10 a month, $35 a month. I mean, whatever you can afford, and you can support them that way. And I think it's such an amazing thing, because it's like, if you do $10 a month, it's like 2 cups of coffee, right?
Right.
So
I think that's a great idea. I see that, with some of the YouTube videos, the creators have Patreon accounts, and I do support some people that way.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little washed out, so I'm going to try and turn the slide off.
So somebody wants to know the story of the plague mask behind you.
So the plague mask, there we go. The plague mask is early on in the COVID era. I wanted something to kind of remember that by, and so I commissioned this mask from Master Ugo, and as a physician, and I wanted something very medieval and something beautiful and something entertaining. And he had made one for himself remotely and worn it a number of times, but I didn't want to take his. I wanted to commission a new one, and so I asked Ugo last year, when the pandemic was still getting going, to make me one, and he cranked it out pretty quick, and I've worn it to the hospital several times.
I love that. That's great.
I was informed that I am no longer allowed to wear that to the emergency department.
Oh. That's so fun.
They didn't have as good a sense of humor as you, apparently.
Yeah, apparently I can't dress as the Grim Reaper anymore either. So, but that's the story of that. It's just a completely frivolous and wonderful thing that I asked Ugo to make for me, and he knocked it out of the park like he does.
Okay. I'm going to share screen again so we can talk about your evil twin.
My evil twin, right? So that was kind of a bonus. I didn't actually plan to have a mannequin stand or anything as part of the deal. But when I commissioned the armor, I was in Spain, and Ugo, of course, was here at Antir, and so he needed to be able to fit things and on the fly and go. So what I ended up doing is I went to this place and had a 3D body scan done of me, and there's a place in Wilsonville, Oregon, just south of Portland, where they essentially CNC'd it out, this 3D body scan of me, and gave it to Ugo based on this 3D scan. Gave it to Ugo, so he had a one-to-one real life model to build the thing around, and made sure everything fit and things. And so at the end, I didn't pay him extra for this, I don't think. But I just, out of the goodness of his heart, he said, what would be really cool is that if we turned this into the stand for your armor. And so he fiberglassed over the face and painted it up and did my beard and sculpted everything in, and then turned it into a stand. It looks like, and he bought this plinth from like this 1800s church. That was an 1800s church out in Pacific Grove, Oregon. And he found this plinth that they were getting rid of. And he's like, I can get it for like $200. That's why I sent him $200, and he bought this plinth, and we put it on. But it looks like exactly how the armors are displayed in their royal armory. These old, now they're 400 years old, wooden mannequins that are with the face of Carlos V, and and so it turned out to be just really fun thing. I used to take it around to some things like this is a demo, but and here's at one of the collegians resting the royal elbow on the ducal cod piece.
I think so many people got candids with it at that collegium. It was hilarious.
They made a web page for it. I think it was probably Joel who did, but there we go. And there's the helmet with the fencing mask on it. That was my saber mask that I really loved. And he's like, I want something really good. And so I sent him that. He cut up my saber mask and made that. It worked out okay, but
It's beautiful.
Like a $200 saber mask that he cut up instead of Beverly Shears, probably. And there's my angel on top.
And that's a better close-up of the Damascus.
Yeah, right, of the acanthus leaf scroll work there on the lamaze of the gorget. Ontir West War.
And it's kind of blurry, but you don't want to put the King's Tabard over this beautiful armor. So
that is true. So fortunately, they give the king a baldric, which also works as a. But I mean, I think people knew who I was, so it was maybe redundant. But you got to represent Ontir, right? And Blue Crush, the Summit's fighting group that I was so pleased to fight with and to support. That's another great example of one of the strengths of the Summits is taking these guys that a lot of them are relatively new. There's plenty of experience in that group, of course, but taking people that are new and getting them involved in something really cool, really early. And I love wars for that, because even if it's your very first war, you can be a hero in that war. There will be a time where you killed Duke so-and-so, or, even if Duke so-and-so wasn't paying attention at the time and just got whacked, or from behind, it doesn't matter. You were a hero, and everybody can be, and in a way, in a war, you can be a hero in a way that it's very difficult to be a hero in, unless you're at the very top of your game in a big tournament. So, and the Summits has that in spades and does it so well. And you see Armand here on the left too, who's a great example of doing that for the rapier group in the Summits as well. Me being allowed to herald for Saverick and Dalla. They joke sometimes because I won the throne, then he won the throne, and then I was champion, then he was a champion, and then I won again, and then he won again. And so I think Dalla joked that he better get on his laurel because.
And is this Gulf Wars?
No, this is Baroness's War, which is a inlands event.
Oh, okay.
This is in Vulcanfeld.
It looks cold.
It usually is. Well, in this particular time it was cold, but yeah, because you don't want to have in Eastern or Central Washington, you don't want to have events in July. So you have events in April, you have some events in May, and you have events in October. And so that works well. And this would have been must have been when Christian beat Sven in the finals.
This last
more
time.
recently. But it's always a proud moment to no, it's never planned on who's going to carry the people around. At least I've been a part of several of them, and it's never ever been planned. But Phelan and I we muscled in early and made sure that we got Sven, because he's such an icon for us and such a good friend. Obviously me having a good time. Oh, and see, I've got a red scarf then too. So now I am cadetted. So speaking of Diane de Montel, his rapier persona is Don Jack Tyler, and he's my mod too. So.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I couldn't be a squire, but I ended up being his. I could be his cadet. So there's the. I'm not sure what I just said, but I look pretty proud of myself.
Do you have students as a Laurel?
I do, and I have 2 apprentices as a Laurel right now. So yeah, I waited a while before I took, and then when I did, I took some students, and I like to do that as a knight as well. As I'll take. Yeah, are you interested? Good, I'm interested in you too. Let's try this out for a year, and so I'll do a man-at-arms type thing. And at the end of the at the end of the Man at Arms year, we can decide together, is this working out for me? Is this working out for somebody else? Like Nicholas of the Cornabeer, for example, was my Man at Arms. And I tell everybody that, if you, at the end of the year, if you fit and you want to be my squire, then we'll make that happen. If during that year you meet somebody else that you really think you mesh with, then I'll make sure you get an introduction and go. And Nicholas of the Cornabeer is a great example of somebody who was my Man at Arms for a year. And at the end of that year, we squired him to Sir Philip de Montel, and they're fast friends and great people too. But and then there's my boy. There's his first fighting event, and this was I think it was a crown, September crown, but he had just turned old enough to fight. So the very first event that he got to actually officially put on armor, he'd done a bunch of practices, but this was the first time that he was fighting and got to go in a squire's tourney, and he's a Man at Arms to Ulfgar, who's just speaking of wonderful human beings that I would like to be more like. He's a great example of that as well. So, and has taken my boy under his wing as much as possible. There's a picture that screams shenanigans right there.
Yep.
Diesel and Vesta. This is at Vesta's laurel ceremony. So I went down to the summits for that, because how could you not go down to the summits to see Vesta get laureled? I love her. And Diesel, I miss her. Wish I get to see her more often.
Yeah, same. Hard same.
Mm-hmm.
And this,
I know that every time I see her, she pikes me in the face. What a fantastic war fighter she is. Looks like I'm introducing my wife in a crown list here, and my son bearing the banner. This would be Attias's. Those are lions, so this would be Attias's lion. Another super well deserved. That's one of the things I love about Antir is seeing who's going to be the lion. And there's so much talk about oh, I can't believe they chose them, or oh, what a good choice, or how come they never choose this. And it is such a personal thing. It is such an individual thing between the crown and that person. This is such a way of saying, I want to be like you when I grow up, is really what I feel like the Lion of Antir is. And that is a personal connection of a king and queen telling you, I want to be like you when I grow up. And so what a flattering, usually unexpected thing it is, and wonderful.
yeah. And we started this interview series wanting to interview all of the Lions of Antir, and every single one of them has just been such an incredible experience to interview them and to get to know them better as people. And I think that if you ever have a question about why someone's a lion, watch their interview and you will not have that question anymore.
Oh, that's a great thing to say. Look at those people. I mean, you get the people up there and the people that weren't there too. I mean, you got Fiek, you got Eduardo, you got just everybody, just all those lions are. And I never, especially since being king, I've never once questioned a lion choice, because I know what kind of personal choice that is and how meaningful it is to the crown and to the person too, of course, but so meaningful to the crown. The first one when I won, we got that Eric. I always said that if I was ever king, I'm going to make sure that Diane de Montel gets a lion. And I won crown, and that day King Eric made Diane de Montel a lion, and I was like, oh, damn it. Well, okay, yes, cool, but also damn it. And so I got to make Catriona a lion the first one, and of course Laurelin the second time. But nobody gets to say that the choice is questionable or the choice is bad. No, that choice is exactly what it needs to be for that king and queen.
And it takes, I mean, you only get to make one for your reign. So it's something that's a lot of thought is put into.
It is. And oftentimes people will go in already knowing, or one of the first things they think about. So even if it's done as the last thing they do in their reign, that's probably been planned for 6 or 9 months.
or longer. I know that there have been several lions made that I've been like, oh, that was one I wanted to do if we were ever lucky enough to get on the throne.
Oh, so, yeah. Well, that means that's also argument that that's a good choice. I mean, when they Havark and Mary Grace made me a lion, and I was at the point where, you know, I was done being Baron, and I'd been King once already, and that boy, is that an eye opener, not just being Baron, but being King, to seeing all the new aspects of the game that most people, mostly fortunately, never get to see, but all the work that goes on. And I reached a point where I said, nobody can make me cry in court. I love making somebody else cry tears of joy in court. And no sooner had I said that than Havoc and Mary Grace made me a lion, and I cried in front of everybody, and there's pictographic proof. So.
I could not find a picture of that, so we don't have a picture of that, unfortunately.
That's all right. It was a good moment, though. That was a July coronation. Well, this is my carp.
Yeah.
This was another surprise, because what a meaningful award. This is if you're not familiar with it, this is the award for persona development, and created by Duchess Lau. And boy, you talk about a paragon of persona development. And so to be recognized as a carp just was a very special thing to me, that I look around at the other people who have carps, and the amount of work that they've done and put into their research and their things and their clothing, everything about them. And it's humbling and very honoring to be a member of the carp. Oh, there's a good story about that too. Is I have when I was King the second time, we were at Arts and Sciences, and now I can't remember the name. Wonderful lady who's a carp, was an early period carp, and she came up to me at Arts and Sciences, and she gave me this medallion, this carp medallion, right?
Oh, cool.
And
Yeah.
She said, oh, this medallion was my carp, and I don't play very much anymore, but I just don't see. I've been waiting to give it away to an early period persona who gets a carp. She said, would you make sure that the next early period persona who gets a carp gets this? And I was the next early period persona that got a carp, and it was with no small amount of joy that I kept that piece. So, I mean, I'm dressed in Spanish right now, and I know there's a lot of pictures out, but the vast majority of my time, as much as I love Spain and all things Spanish, is that Anglo-Saxon and Vandalara is my real ballywhack.
It's your big passion.
Yeah.
I think we just have a couple more photos.
Sure.
So I pulled a lot. So we interviewed Bridget last week, and
I love her.
she mentioned that this was just a really, really special moment for her, and that your support during a difficult time meant so much to her. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew that.
Oh, I just love her and her husband both, and I miss them. They're over in Atlanta now, doing well for themselves, and being the wonderful people that they are, and over there with Howard and Mary Grace. But she's so easy to love, and you as king or queen, you develop this very strong relationship, hopefully very strong, good relationship with your kingdom seneschal. And she was kingdom seneschal during my first reign, and so we went through a lot together. And and still are very adamant supporters and adamant admirers of each other as people, and the way she's able to handle really difficult things, problems for the kingdom. Boy, what a fantastic representative she was for the kingdom, and for a new king. You know, she's amazing. Speaking of amazing people, that'd be my wife. I'm not sure. She's probably getting her Terpsichore box here, which is fun because she created that award for dance. And then I don't know how many years later, 3 years later or something like that, she's granted that award. But that's her. She loves many things in the SCA, and dance is at the top of that list, and it shows, I think.
Did you bring her into the SCA, or did you guys meet in the SCA?
No, I brought her into the SCA. We met in calculus class. So that's the old love story. Boy goes to calculus class, meets girl, marries girl in calculus class. But no, she joined the SCA as a result. Actually, we weren't dating until we were friends, and then I took her to an SCA event, and her first or second SCA event. The first, I won the Squires tourney, and she got this little Pakistani knife. It probably cost $1.50 and was probably a ripoff, but she still has it because it's the first thing I won for her. And it was that something magic about the knight in shining armor. And first or second event is when I got knighted too. So she got to put the belt on me, even though we were just recently dating, I think, at that point. But it was the SCA that caused her to see me as something different than a friend, and when we really started dating. So that worked out well for me, clearly. I'm married way out of my league.
Very cool.
So right now, during COVID, you are also Kingdom Champion and Laurel Secretary.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of service all at once. What motivates you with your service? You've been Earl Marshal twice. You've been
Kingdom Heavy Marshal, but yeah.
Okay, yeah. Sorry. Chivalry
Chivalry
Secretary
Secretary, yeah, a couple of times, right?
and Laurel Secretary. That's a lot of work.
The secretary is a lot of work, and it's something that needs to be done and needs to be done well. And the Laurels have such a history of being so well organized that I was a lot more intimidated when I accepted that role than, I'd been Shiv secretary a couple of times, and I mean, that's just a bunch of
We're a lot looser.
stick jogs that are a little, but not nearly as organized as the Laurels are, at least on tier. I don't know how it's like anywhere else, but it was very intimidating to do so. Plus, relative, I was more newer as a Laurel, it's a good way to serve. It's a good way to meet people, and get to know what the people in the councils are like, and then to a certain extent to represent the council to other people, and that's also kind of hard. So when you're talking about service during the pandemic, it's pretty easy to be champion during the pandemic, because all I got to do is make sure that sword is accounted for, and the cloak is off getting repaired right now, and but so it's easy to be champion during the pandemic, because I have really no responsibilities other than to make sure I don't lose any regalia.
Well, and if something happens to their majesties, you have to be
That's a good point.
Yeah, I'm blanking on the name of it.
Regent
Regent
until somebody else would be chosen. Yep, that's in Kingdom laws. And so, I was Christian, of course, when he won crown. He was this last time he was champion, and so he, as part of Kingdom law, he has to give that up, because it says you're not allowed to be crown prince and champion, because then there's no regent or whatever. But he beat me in the finals. Fun, great fights, and I was pleased to have won as many of those as I did in the crazy best of 9 or whatever, best of 7, or whatever that it was, best of 5. I don't know, but it was very nice, because I'd done. That's happened a couple of times, actually, to me. The very first time I finaled in a crown level event was Coronation, and that was with Skaggy, and in a middle of July Coronation in Yakima, middle of South Central Washington, in 110-degree heat. I'm like, oh, if I'm going to win, it's going to be now, because everybody else is dead and I'm used to this. And it wasn't pleasant. And of course, Skaggy, who's also used to that, was in the finals as well. But he beat me, and then he won crown. But when you win crown, if you're the champion, you get to choose who's champion. And there's the majority of the time that's happened, the person who got second in the champions tournament is selected. But that's not, I mean, it's happened a bunch of times. You can imagine if you're champion, you're at the top of the game, and a good chance you're gonna be king too, or a chance of it anyway. But Sven, for example, was champion and won and picked Dak. Yeah. And Dak hadn't fought for a while, as I recall at that point, but it was a way to honor somebody really that you really admire and really respect. And then so Skaggy won, and I was like, hey, I think this means I'm going to be champion. and Skiggy picked Torfin. And I'm like, well, I guess this means I'm not going to be champion. And my wife, because she loves me, and she was kind of, hey, he can't do that. I don't think he can do that. And I'm like, no, he can actually do that. That's been never fun. And it's okay because Skiggy. How do you not love Skiggy anyway, right? But so I had no expectations this time. But and Christian, when he picked me, I presume because I'd done it before, but because I came in second at that tournament too. Don't get me wrong, I won that once as well, but I mean, I'm no Optimus Otis is all I'm saying.
Yeah, he's done it, I think, 4 times.
I only have ever beat that guy in a tournament. He's just so amazing.
Well, he's been working hard during the pandemic, so
Oh yeah.
He's really looking forward to playing again once everybody is vaccinated and it's safe. So.
Which brings up a good point. There's a lot of questions about when are we going to get back to normal, whatever that becomes, or what. And it really is. People are looking to the Crown for answers and looking to the BOD for answers, but they're rightfully following the public health officials' advice. I mean, so you'd be mad at them for not allowing any events or whatever, but it's the public health officials' decision. And as a physician and as the county medical director, I feel strongly that that's some good advice to follow. And so I tell people the same thing. You want to get back to normal, get vaccinated. There's no faster, more reasonable way to get things back to as normal as possible than to reach a herd immunity level and get vaccinated. And the amount of resistance against that as a physician, as a scientist, really surprises me. And so I've got a loud cat in here.
Our cats have been crazy all day too. Yeah, it's surprising to me too.
Yeah, there's no faster way. You want to get out of this, get vaccinated, and get everybody you know back to get vaccinated. That is the way out of this, and the best way, the fastest way out of this. And if we don't reach herd immunity, this thing's going to last 10 years, maybe longer. Look how long the Spanish flu epidemic. It was really bad in 1918, 1919, but those weren't the only years it was there and was killing people. So
yeah, and it's not that bad. The vaccination is not that bad.
No, I was as a frontline healthcare worker, I was very fortunate that I got mine back in December. Both doses. I had the Pfizer vaccine. I was the first one, maybe my shoulder a little sore, but that's like a tetanus shot as far as I was concerned. The second one, my body ached for about 18 hours, and I'm like, oh, I felt miserable. My wife said I had the man flu for 18 hours. I woke up at 4 a.m. sore, and by dinner time I was fine. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah, same with me. I had really mild reaction.
People say, oh, I'm worried about the side effects. I'm like, well, you haven't seen, what I'm worried about side effects of, and that's COVID. The people with the Brits call the long COVID, or that the CDC is calling the long haulers. And we had, I mean, it's been hard being an emergency doctor during COVID. We lost 7 people in one night in my hospital. I've never seen that from anything. Shootings, heart attacks, nothing. 7 people in one night. People are, oh, it's not that bad as the flu. Is it really that bad? It is worse. It is worse than you've heard. And there's a lot of factors involved in that, and I don't want to talk about that all night. But side effects of vaccines. Yep, yeah, that it hurts, and some people get achy, and some people have some very, very rare effects. But what's way worse, and that's freaking COVID.
Yeah. So. Well, we are all fully vaccinated except for my 12-year-old, who we're hoping we will get approval next week and be able to do that very soon. So
we're looking forward to that too. And my almost 16-year-old, he has an appointment on his 16th birthday, but if they approve it for early for the 12 to 15-year-olds next week, then he's going next week. I can tell you that. Nobody likes shots, and I don't blame him. I don't like shots, but I don't like more. That's COVID.
Yep. And both my kids hate shots, but they were very eager for this one. So
good call.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for, I don't know if we'll wrap it up or what. I'm sorry, but I just wanted to take the opportunity to say thank you so much for inviting me. I was very, very flattered. I don't know either of you very well. I've met both of you many times, but I don't feel like I've ever really gotten to chat with you or get to know you guys very well. And I still feel sorry because Rifkin came to Barron's Ball, a couple of years ago with the express purpose of trying to hunt me down and fight me. And in the last scenario, I hurt my knee so bad I couldn't even do pickup.
Totally dodged me.
That was exactly what I was. It intimidated me so much. I'm like, you know what? I'd rather blow my knee out than
Legitimately. You would have been like Duke number 48 or something that year, but that was okay.
48 in a year.
I had a really fun
That's
time
amazing.
at Barron's Ball. It was super fun.
Isn't that a fun event? It's just it's one of the last remnants of a local feeling event of the same type that it seemed like almost everything was when I first joined. Has that very much family type feel, just low key. I don't have anything to do other than fight and have a good time when I'm not Barron.
And it's really not a far drive. It's like, I don't know, 4 hours, maybe 3.5, 4 hours, 4.5
That's
hours.
not too bad. Yeah, we're right around 3 from Seattle proper. Downtown to my house, I think it's 3 hours and 15.
Yeah, we used to day trip Barron's Ball many years ago,
We
but
definitely day tripped.
Actually, many years ago, Barron's Ball wasn't a camping event. It was just a day trip event.
You guys have great Mexican food over there, though.
We
So
have
every time we day trip,
fantastic Mexican food here. You are right. You are right. The Taco Tuesdays here are amazing.
I'm a Southern California girl, so
You can relate then. Yes. No, we have fantastic Mexican food here. It's a good thing I speak Spanish too.
for sure. Well, is there anything else either of you wanted to talk about? Misty, do you have any more questions? Rifkin, sorry.
Somebody asked is there any part of your journey that you would do differently?
Oh, that's a super good question. There's some things I think about a lot, and I think about. I'll give you you've asked a number of people, and you didn't ask me, but it's something I thought about what is the advice that you give to people when you sit down at a vigil, right? I've heard you guys ask that question before. And mine is the lessons that I've learned the hard way, and that is when you're a peer, not just when you're a peer, but especially when you're a peer, you're all of a sudden the things you say carry more weight than you mean them to carry. So the little jokes, the little snide comments that were super funny when you were a squire, or when you were an apprentice, or when you had no rank whatsoever, all of a sudden really cut somebody, and they don't forget that. And I learned that the hard way I told you how young I was when I was knighted. I was a young punk, and speaking of Sven, but we learned some of the same lessons in the same hard ways, and that you can really break somebody. And so I think about that a lot. So, and I've tried, since I've been aware of that, and since I've learned that lesson the hard way, to, you can use that power for good too. If you're a laurel, or if you're just respected, or if you're the baron, or especially if you're the king or queen, or a knight or whatever, a small word of encouragement can just carry a massive amount of weight and pay off in spades for that person. Sometimes it's just the right time. Sometimes you're just the right person at that moment, whatever it was. But I think a lot about what are some of those times I didn't know about? What are some of those when somebody was needing my attention or needing something positive from me, and I was too tired or too ignorant or just not paying attention at that time, and I missed that opportunity to make a positive difference, or I inadvertently made a negative difference, and that hit so hard when I was king. You try to make everybody happy, and you can't, and you just cannot, but you have to do your best anyway. And so I ended up a couple of times really pissing off people that I really respected and admired. And so there's some things that I would go back and do differently. Do I regret the whole experience? No. Do I think I had a very positive effect? Yes, I think we were very effective as king and queen. But I think back, if there's something I could do differently, there's a number of things that where my unintended weight as king, or my unintended weight as a knight, or just a cool guy at fight practice, I could have made a positive difference, and I may have, and I missed that. And so those are the kind of things that keep me awake at night, and that I think about.
Yeah, I would go even further. Like, you don't have to be a peer to do that. I have come to the conclusion that whenever I'm thinking of something positive about somebody, or I have a thought, wow, that's cool, I just have to say it. And that's the way that I've decided to live my life now. Like, anytime like I see something on Facebook that I think is cool, I always comment, because it means so much to people just to have, especially now when we can't see each other, just to have interaction. That, if you're feeling it, why don't you say it?
No, I think that's great advice, and I wish more people would see that and feel that. I remember, Sir Bryn up in Thierry. I love that man. He's such a wonderful human. And I remember he made some comment. And we got talking about Facebook or something. He says, "Yeah, I noticed. I noticed when you like my posts." And I'm like, "What?" He says, "Yeah, you like a lot of my." You hit like or notice a lot of my workout posts. And I'm like, yeah, you're doing something really awesome. You're trying to be healthy. And maybe that's just me as a doctor seeing the consequences of what happens to us when we're 40 and 50 when we don't make those good decisions. but yeah, that's an encouragement. And that's, like you said, it's noticed. It's noticed by some people. And that stuff, like you, Rifkin, are so hard for me to read. Like I feel like I don't know you. I don't know you at all. That we've sat in councils together for a decade or more, and I feel like this is, and I'm probably doing all the talking here today too. But
this is your interview, so you're supposed to.
I guess that is my past. Thank you. I appreciate that. But it's something where you're not an easy person to approach and talk to for me. I know that's not the case for everybody. And I love you, and I respect all the work that you're doing in the kingdom, not just for this, but your previous, especially your fighting teaching video series, etc., and how what a patron you were of fighting teachers and getting those people to come to Ontier and tapping into our own talent as well here. Learned so much from your video series, and really appreciated the work. That's why it was one of the reasons when you were made a lion, it's like, that's a freaking no-brainer right there. That was somebody who really contributed on here. But the way I connect with most people is on the field, or it seems like. And when I'm on the field, I feel like this overwhelming joy for the most part, until I'm so tired, right? And then it's like, I just want to sit down. But mostly I'm fighting. I can't get this dumbass grin off my face. I'm having such a good time. And so it's very easy to relate for me to people who also show that same joy. And I know you have joy in fighting, but you would never know it by looking at your face on the field or when you take your helmet off. And so that was, I think that was maybe my barrier, my own little mental barrier, because I know you enjoy this, but I couldn't see it and I couldn't relate. And so I'm confessing my own fault in terms of not getting to know you better before.
I have murder face. I'm just I get deep in thought, and that's just whatever.
I think, can I add my 2 cents?
Oh, of course. Sure. Sister speaks up.
It's put Misty on the spot, which is like the thing she hates absolutely the most in the world.
Are my shoulders up at my ears?
Yeah, they are. I can hear Mark laughing upstairs.
At least she didn't make her dance in court.
My shoulders were definitely like up on top of my head then. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say that I think you murder face because you have to put up a bit of a shield. As kind of one of the pioneering, really successful female fighters in this kingdom, you've had to be you've had to be a person apart in a lot of ways. And I think that your murder face has been survival in a lot of ways. And I completely understand why it's there. And I think there's nothing wrong with it. So.
Octa's telling me to step away. No, I don't know. Whatever. I will think about that, and I will. I know that sometimes I don't come off approachable, but I am super approachable, and I really am a pretty positive person. So if anybody else is worried because I don't smile all the time, that's not how I show my joy on the field. So anyway,
you get to show your joy on your field however you want to, and that's fine.
But,
and I respect it. You know, I don't understand it, but I respect it. You know, Christian, same way. Don't understand, but I respect it. Kjartan, exact same thing. Don't understand on the field.
I have good company.
But I respect you have very good company indeed.
But we should ask you the ducal questions. I didn't bring them all out, but I kind of remember them.
Okay.
Who is your favorite fight ever?
Oh, my favorite fight ever. That's probably going to be Dak. So Dak, I mean, what a legend, right? I mean, I have lots of great fights, and I have lots of great memories of fighting. And fighting as a very young person with some of these heroes from Ontir, Dak and Torgal and Grendel and Oak. But my favorite set of fights ever was I think it may have been Coronation, it may have been Crown, but it was in between. It was in between the lists. Or in between rounds, you know, when everybody's waiting, and I was just looking for some fun. I was sitting there on the side of the field, and I see Dak out there, and Dak's got this square shield, which is virtually unheard of in Ontir at that time. Center grip, kind of a scutum, small scutum thing, and he had this little like 24-inch axe. And I said, oh, if there's ever a time where I can go hit Dak, this is my opportunity, right? Because doesn't have his sword, he doesn't have his round shield. And this is me, you know, idiot 22-year-old or 23-year-old or however old I was. And so I go out, and he's just waiting for somebody to fight him. So I go out, and he just cleans my clock with this axe and just really humbles this otherwise way too good for himself squire or there was a knight or what at the time. Pretty close to that time, I think. But and then he put the axe down, and then he had a different shield, and then we went out some more, and I just had this series of just beautiful fights. I love that man so much. He taught me so much about throwing a blow, and one of the things he taught me though was about how to watch a fight and how to be forgiving of something that looks strange. You know, like, did he feel that, you know, or about how to be forgiving. He says, you know, you just don't know unless you're the one being hit what's going on, regardless of how it looks. And that was one of the things that Dak taught me. But that series of fights made an impression and stuck in my mind. What I did not know was that those fights were being recorded, and Dak has those. And Dak came up to me at 12th night that he just popped into a few years back. And he says, Styrkarr, he says, there's two sets of fights that were my favorite of all time. And one was when I went to West Crown with Torgal. And we went out there and just did an exhibition right before the finals to show him what some Ontir Dukes could fight like. And he says, and the other one was this stupid little set of pickups that I did with you at a July coronation in between rounds. And I'm like, I know exactly what set of fights you are talking about. That made such an impression on me too. And how flattering that one of my heroes remembers me that way. Even if he was just saying it to be nice, it meant a lot to me.
I'm sure he wasn't. Dak doesn't do that.
No, no. He's the closest to a Vulcan king, I think.
I love Dak. Yeah, he's my example of somebody that always does the hard thing because it's the right thing.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love that man. Still love it every time I get a chance to see him.
Okay. What's your favorite medieval-esque or perioid movie?
Medieval-esque or perioid. It's probably going to be 13th Warrior. And I know everybody crucifies that movie because of the terrible armor choices, but it's got Omar Sharif, and it's got this fabulous Scandinavian cast and just a really cool story and emerging in this early period. And so for all its faults, The 13th Warrior is one of my favorite period movie.
If you had to tell someone out of Kingdom one event to come to in Ontario, which one would it be?
Baron's Ball.
I should have known that.
Yeah, I should have known. That's just easy. Easy one right there.
What
Just a
is your-
weekend of sheer fun.
What is your favorite in Kingdom tradition?
In Kingdom tradition. I have a number of them. I love the way Ontier represents in a crown tournament. I love how, not that there's something wrong with some of the way the other kingdom do it. They believe that a person fighting for crown should be well prepared. And we believe that the person who wins crown should be well prepared. And we believe that the person who wins crown should be well tested. So even if we're not going to win, we're going to make sure that whoever wins has to get through us. And I remember going to Penzic as king the first time, and I think it's a stick jock thing, but you start talking about the crown you won, right? And I was listening to these other kings talking about, and yeah, it was the biggest crown that Atlantia had. We had 17 people and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, and they're like, how many did you guys have, Styrkarr? 105. They're like, what?
And that's a small crown.
And that at that time, right? That was before Abacal broke off. And so yeah, so that's one of the things. I love the Collar of Steel. I love the mod ceremony. I love our 12th nights. They're just so much fun. I love our arts and sciences community, but one kingdom thing, I think that would be it, is our commitment to testing the people who are in the crown.
If you could fight anyone in the world, who would it be?
Fight anybody in the world, who would it be? Can I go back in time?
Yep.
Then I'm going to pick Duke Brian at his prime. I remember going as a 19-year-old kid, or probably 18 actually, 18-year-old kid or whatever, to Australia and seeing Duke Brian fight in his prime. And Brian
He's still really good.
Oh, I'm quite sure. I have no doubt. But I never got to fight him. I didn't get to fight him at that Australia. And then I don't know if I've ever seen him again, you know, and I get glimpses of that in Duke Sean, who I love to fight and who I just have a ton of respect for his technique, especially. But to have fought Brian Tarragon in his prime, that'd be who I'd pick.
I went out to Adult Swim with Sean, and he fed me to Brian my first fight. It was an education.
So it can still happen, is what you're telling me.
Yes.
Oh, that'd be
It can
great.
still happen.
I watched him fight a series of fights with Sven at that Australia, and Sven was the hot Ontarian squire at that time. Everybody, I was sitting in the background. Everybody there was saying, "Why isn't that guy a knight? Why isn't that guy a knight? Why isn't that guy a knight?" And but that was some beautiful things I'll never forget, was watching Sven fighting Brian in Australia. Sven at probably 19 or 20.
When he's super fast.
Oh yeah, like he's gotten slower. I don't think so.
Okay. What's your favorite Estrella story?
My favorite Estrella story? My favorite Estrella story is probably just the classic on-tier flying wedge. You know, everybody goes out there, and it was my first experience of a huge war, right? So it takes time to grind things down and that open field battle, there's a bunch of us out there, and this is in the height of the Varangians, and so everybody was a Varangian or wanted to be a Varangian, and so you got Steingrim out there and all the guys, and Ontier's got maybe 18, 20 people. We go out to the open field battle, and they're like, okay, what are you guys going to do? Okay, you guys are going to take the left, you're going to take the right. And they're like, what's Ontier going to do? Like, Ontier's going to charge and die in the first 30 seconds. They always do. And we did, and it was glorious. The old Ontier flying wedge. Nothing beats the flying wedge, man.
If you had to recommend one book for a fighter starting out to read, what book would it be?
Known World Handbook. And that's because as much as you love fighting, the SCA is deep. The SCA is deep, and you'll start to appreciate that when you read a little bit about that, those essays that people have put their time into, and the little anecdotes and the little hints about this and that, and just how to be part of this, something that's very complex and very deep and very amazing. But so, Known World Handbook. And I didn't know I was going to say that until you asked.
Oh, well, very cool. I like the off the cuff answers. If you could talk about fighting with anyone in the world for an hour, who would it be?
I could talk about fighting with anyone in the world for an hour. It might be Arminius. I might talk to Arminius about it because, as you know,
into coming back.
Yeah, if it happens, I picked up his armor.
I know, he told me.
You're the one who has it.
Yeah, it needs to go to somebody who's going to appreciate it. I told him, I said, if you ever come back, I'll send it right back to you. He's like, no, if I come back, it's gonna be as a reinvention. I'm like, oh, I can appreciate that. That's just fine. But his critical eye, as far as you and he are two of those people who have analyzed fighting more than anybody, maybe Thorin too, but the analytics, Martin the Harper, really good at that as well. Picked that up from Thorin. If I wanted to talk fighting, I want to talk to somebody who has that analytical eye and that video experience and that way of looking at things. Because I remember talking to Dak one time when we were talking about Torgal, and it was a discussion. I said, I was fighting Torgal, I said, and I asked him, I said, I was fighting and I made a movement and he switched his legs. He switched the other leg forward. And I'm like, why did you do that? He just wouldn't answer. And this was at a Varangian event up in the mountains a long time ago. And I asked Dak, I'm like, why, tell me a little bit about that. He wouldn't tell me. I didn't know if he was just not wanting to tell me his secrets. And he says, no. He says, he doesn't know. He doesn't know. He's such a natural. And I see this in Sven too, for example. He is such a natural that why does he do it? Because it's effective. Because he intimately just knows that it's going to work. And because of that, it can be difficult for him to teach somebody. And I think I became one of the real reasons I became a much better fighter after I came back into the SCA after my long absence, was that I ended up I decided I'd go and take some squires, and then teaching these squires, because I had always just been a fast, what was my strategy? Jump up into the air and hit him in the back of the head as many times as I could before he hit the ground. And so having to actually think of this, why did you do that? Now I have to answer that question. And so analyzing my own fighting made me such a better fighter. That was a longer answer than you wanted, I'm quite sure.
No, that's a really good answer, I think.
But it was very insightful of Dak, and I see that, and I remember asking one time Elegrim what Elegrim Sexwolf was Sven Squire, right? And asking him what Sven tells you, and he's like, fight better. Like that was the sum, according to Elegrim, that was the sum of Sven's advice to him, was to fight better or suck less. And because Sven's so amazing, but he's such a natural too. I don't know if he knows what he's doing. Consciously is what I mean. Obviously, he knows what he's doing.
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay. What event have you never been to that you would like to go to?
Great Western War. Great Western War. Last time Cedric won, because it's always during Baron's Ball, right? And so last time Cedric won, that was my promise to him, is he and I are going to go down to Great Western War. And something happened and he had to cancel out. And so we went to Barron's that year, but that was like the one year I had said, okay, I'm, even though I'm Baron, I'm going to miss Baron's Ball, and I'm going to go to Great Western War with the king. And I hear so many fun stories about that event, and there's so many people I love down in Caid, down in the west, and so to be able to catch up with them, that international or interkingdom, I guess, SCA community is pretty special, and I wish I would have discovered that earlier.
I want a whole bunch of us to go, and like the day before we go to Universal Studios and go to all the haunted houses and like do the whole Ellen thing there.
I'm in. I am so in.
That's one of Rifkin's secret guilty pleasures, is watching people go through haunted houses.
I love them.
Now I know.
Okay, and then the last question is, what do you think is the most important characteristic for someone to become a successful fighter?
The ability to keep going when you fail. I can't, I mean, you just fail. You fail so many times. I mean, what was it? It's 6 months before you start, of really hard fighting and learning before you start to kill anybody on a regular basis. And that's a lot of delayed gratification. And then you add the tourney scene in, and it's going to be 20 years maybe before you're at the top of that tourney scene.
Especially now with how long people have been fighting. I mean, you have people out there like Duke Sean that have been fighting 40 years almost.
Yes, and you learn a lot in that amount of time. And it also selects for the people who are the most successful, self-select and stay in. Why is it when we go to those, onto your crowns and there's 90 or 100 people, half of them are knights, and half of them, have been fighting for 20 years or more. And that's because the people who are successful tend to stay in, but that just takes that bar and that just keeps it moving up and up and up and up and up. So it's hard. I wonder if I would have had the patience for it, if it would have been at the level it is now when I joined. It's a great question. That's a tough bar.
I think perseverance is super important. I think one of the things that's super hard for a lot of newer people is they come in and people fight just above them, and then they get better and they fight just above them, and they feel like they never make any progress, which is why I love the concept of victory conditions so much, because you take the body count or the winning out of what defines successful. Anyway, that's my rant about that.
So give me an example of what you mean.
Like, instead of I'm going to go out and win the tournament, I am going to go out and not throw the thrust first. Like, that would be a victory condition, right?
Well, that's great. And I think like that all the time. I know exactly what you're talking about. And like when I'm fighting Octomasatus, I have the exact same goal every time. He will not kill me by hitting me right here.
Yeah, I do the same.
That's my only thing I'm thinking about. I'm not often successful, but
he is not going to fuzzy bunny me today.
That's right. He can kill me anywhere else, but it will not be right here.
It's not going to be right there.
I don't care if I got to hold my shield right here and take it in the leg till I die.
Are you going to ask that one, Rifkin?
No, why don't you ask it? And
okay.
Then we'll be done. This is the last question series.
Okay. Do you have any concerns about what the fighting community will have to face with such a long break from fighting? For example, calibration issues.
I hadn't thought of calibration issues. I haven't fought in over a year. Now that I'm vaccinated, my son's vaccinated. A number of people that are around here are vaccinated. We're talking about, and the CDC has eased their restrictions, especially on outdoor stuff. I'm planning on having a fight practice. People come over to my house, or I'll go over to somebody's house, or we're going to go camping, and we're going to bring our armor, all within CDC compliant stuff now. But I'm more worried about maybe overall fitness level and muscle memory, and how my body's changed in a year, and what's going to happen when my cerebellum tells my arm to do that, and what will happen to my arm after it tries. Maybe that's more what I'm worried about. I don't know about gauging issues and what, because I think we're all are almost all of us are in the same boat. Anyway,
I think I don't know if Roland wants me to answer too, but I think communication is going to be super key. Just talk about it, and maybe that's another way we can normalize communication without accusing people of cheating. Where you just talk about it and how you feel and what you felt, and it's just sort of like whatever. But I'm with you. I'm way more worried about people that haven't been active at all during the last year and a half, and them going out there and pushing it too hard and having a heart attack on the field or something. So just be graceful, or have some grace with yourself, and don't know your limits, and don't try to be who you were 2 years ago, because you're not going to be.
yeah, that's very true. And I like your point about the communication, yours or Roland's, but that's I think that's key to good fighting anyway. And fun fighting, especially, but not exclusively, but especially in practice, which is how we're all going to restart this thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to come out cold into a crown, I can tell you that.
Hopefully none of us will.
Hopefully not. There's going to be one of us.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining us and for giving us 2.5 hours of your time.
Oh, I didn't even realize. I'm so sorry for the people who had to watch this.
You have kept the audience has stayed pretty consistent, and so very cool.
It's been a real treat. Thank you so much for both of you guys to host me and invite me in on this. I feel very flattered and very happy to have shared some time and got to know you guys better.
It's been very, very cool.
Thank you for your time. I know how valuable it is these days. So thank you.
My pleasure. Look forward to seeing you guys again at real events as soon as we can.
Yes.
So we're just gonna plug what we're doing next week. Do you want to start,
Okay.
the Shaxi?
I don't
I'll
think
start.
with me.
On Sunday, Adriana the Fierce is going to talk about making fighting surcoats on Leveling Up. She is awesome at making surcoats. She's great at painting, at any kind of embellishment. It'll be a really good one, because she was out on the field and making surcoats for Thorin and herself way before I even found the SCA. So she is just a rock
She
star.
shines at that. She's wonderful at that.
Yeah.
And then
Another thing.
Sorry.
Then Tuesday,
Okay.
a branch of laurels with Maysoon from Artemisia, and she is a pandemic laurel. She was elevated during the pandemic virtually. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then do you want to talk about Wednesday?
Wednesday is Duke Torquil, another legendary Duke of Antir, who is known for his flashy helmets and his very weird movement style on the field. And we've heard some really great stories about him from other people, and now we'll get to hear his perspective. So that should be
That'd
fun.
be great. He was king when I joined.
Oh, really?
And at the first tournament I went to, I fought him and asked for advice. He's like, I don't know, relax a little bit.
And you know what? He made Luika a duchess. So
Yeah.
that's something very cool, because she's amazing.
Speaking of awesome people, exactly correct.
Anyway, thanks again, and thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Good
Bye-bye.
night.